vamos para el Congreso de los Estados Unidos, nos vamos a la Cámara de Representantes. Jim McGovern es el congresista que nos atiende a esta hora. Él es presidente de la Comisión de Derechos Humanos en el Congreso de los Estados Unidos. Mr. McGovern, good morning. Good morning. What information do you have about what is going on in Colombia?
Well, the information that I received is very disturbing. I've heard from friends in Colombia who have called me directly, and I've also seen the videos online that show the violent response to the protests that are happening in Colombia. And I've been to many of these cities, to Bogota, to Cali, and Popayán, and elsewhere. And I feel deeply the loss of life and the many wounded and traumatized because of the violence that has been used against these protesters. And so I'm deeply concerned. And so are many members of Congress.
Congressman McGovern, how this situation could affect the support, the help that our country receives, especially our military forces?
Yeah, so my view is that peaceful protest is the foundation of freedom of expression. And peaceful protest should never, ever be met with the use of force by police forces, let alone violent, brutal, excessive use of force, like what we're seeing in Colombia. And it's the responsibility of the police and the Colombian government to manage these protests in a way that is consistent with human rights law. And so Congress and the Biden administration, I believe, need to take a hard look at U.S. aid, equipment and training to the Colombian National Police. And calling on the Colombian government to do everything that it can at this moment to de-escalate tensions and to put a stop to police violence against unarmed civilians and peaceful protests. You know, government and military officials also should refrain from inflammatory rhetoric and language that stigmatizes those who are critical of government policies. And let me just say one other thing. You know, I called up my own government in the United States when the U.S. government responded to peaceful protests with an inappropriate level of force last summer. You know, what's happening in Colombia is much, much worse. And I'm calling out the Colombian government to de-escalate tensions and to stop this violence.
Congressman McGovern, how can the United States help Colombia at this moment?
Well, I mean, what we're doing is urging Colombia, who is our ally and our friend, to stop the violence. And, you know, as I said, it's very disturbing to see video after video on Twitter and social media of police brutality, of beatings, sending people to the hospital who are peacefully protesting. You know, these protests are overwhelmingly peaceful, you know, and for the police to indiscriminately attack people who are peacefully expressing their voices and even bystanders is wrong. So, you know, it's the responsibility of the police to manage peaceful protests in a way that is consistent with human rights law. And I'm going to say one other thing, and that is the current President of the United States, Joe Biden, in sharp contrast to the previous President of the United States, Donald Trump, Joe Biden actually cares about human rights. What's happening in Colombia, I'm sure, is tugging at his heart right now.
Congressman, will you propose something for the congressman to the pressure Colombia after that?
Look, you know, only Colombia can stop the violence, but they need to know that if they don't, that there could be repercussions. And as I said, I think it is appropriate at this moment for the U.S. government and the Biden administration to take a hard look at U.S. aid, equipment, and training to the Colombian National Police at a minimum. The people of the United States don't want their tax dollars going in any way, shape, or form to crushing peaceful protest. I mean, what is happening in Colombia is deeply disturbing. It is wrong, and I believe rises to the level of constituting human rights violations.
Last question, Mr. McGovern. Did the ambassador for Colombia in Washington or any Colombian authority has been in contact to you to try to explain what's going on in our country?
I have not received a phone call from the Colombian ambassador to the United States or any Colombian government official to me directly. But they need to know that the world is watching. And again, I mean, this is all over social media. I've received calls from friends of mine who have told me about what's happening. But it is there. It has been videotaped. It has been filmed. And constantly on social media, you see the attacks on peaceful protesters. It is wrong. It has to stop. And the American people do not want their tax dollars going to crushing peaceful protests. If it doesn't end, we're going to have to take a look at some of these assistance programs because I don't want my government to be complicit in any of this.
I'm asking you this because this morning in this radio show, the Minister of Defense in Colombia said to us and to the country that we are fronting some type of urban terrorism. That what is happening now is that the people from trafficker dealers, former FARC members are behind all these attacks to the police stations and to different places in the country. So I was thinking if they gave you any explanation about our Attorney General saying that behind this is some kind of urban terrorism.
First of all, let me urge the Minister of Defense to watch the videos. I mean, all he needs to do is go online and he can see the videos of what is happening. These are peaceful protests that are being met with violence. And to the extent that they're pointing to isolated incidents of violence that they may be responding to, they are isolated. The overwhelming majority of these protests are peaceful. The world knows that. So, rather than put forward a false narrative, rather than embrace conspiracy theories, they ought to understand that what they are doing is they are crushing peaceful protests with excessive violence, and it is unacceptable. It is wrong. It constitutes a human rights violation. And again, as I said before, I would urge Colombian governmental officials to de-escalate tensions. And one of the ways to do that is to not go down the road of trying to mischaracterize what is happening, not to use inflammatory rhetoric, not to try to make the to characterize this as something that it is not. Look, the bottom line is peaceful protest is the foundation of freedom of expression. It is key to democracies. And peaceful protest, no matter how much you may disagree with it, should never be met with the use of force by police forces like we are seeing right now in Colombia. And so I hope that there's some rethinking in the Colombian government about how to deal with this. I hope that they will end the violent attacks against these protesters by governmental forces. I hope that they will respect people's right to peaceful protest, and I hope they will engage these protesters, on the issues that they're raising. But not engaging them doesn't mean meeting them with violence. And again, I've been watching what's been going on. I've been hearing from people, but maybe if this continues, we should find a way to make sure that any aid that we send to Colombia goes directly to the people and not to the security forces or the police that are guilty of this. But the world is watching, and I would again urge Colombian government officials who are trying to characterize this as something that it isn't. Watch the videos. It's clear.
Congressman McGovern, thank you very much for your time, and we hope that we have a better time in the near future in Colombia. We are having a very bad time. Thank you very much.
Colombia's in my prayers. Be safe.